Welcome to the point, so let's get to it. Because Ann Taylor is claiming through Cy Ray's testimony that Bryan was nowhere near Moscow during the time of this attack. But the elephant in the room is what evidence the state is saying they have, which is video surveillance of a white Hyundai Elantra circling that home multiple times during the time of this attack. So either the defense is right, the state is right, or the investigation was done wrong and Bill's going to look like a fool. Because the courtroom's a lot like the Highlander and there can be only one. So let's talk about it.
Copyright disclaimer under Section 107 of the Copyright Act 1976. Allowance is made for fair use for purposes such as criticism, comment, news reporting, scholarship, and research. Fair use is a use permitted by copyright statute that might otherwise be infringing. Nonprofit, educational, or personal use tips the balance in favor of fair use.
So in terms of this alibi, is the state right? Now, in order for the state to be right, that would mean that Cy Ray would have to be wrong. Which would also mean that the expert witness, who was former law enforcement and normally testifies on behalf of the state, has no idea what he's doing. Now, a commenter on a previous video led me to Grizzly True Crimes channel where she first brought up a report, and I'll show it for you right here. But essentially a judge had determined that Cy Ray's technology was being thrown out due to it being unreliable. And if you like what I'm doing on this channel, hit that like button and leave a comment down below. Because that article also goes on to say that Cy grossly inflated his resume, as well as making the statement that he's not an engineer. And you have two ways to look at that particular statement. Is he technically an engineer by way of education? Well, supposedly not. But does a piece of paper validate your ability to create and develop? And that answer would be, of course, no, because the definition of what an engineer is somebody who designs and builds things. So has Cy Ray actually designed and built something? Well, yes, he has. So that technically does make him an engineer of sorts. But the huge question surrounding his name is he right or wrong? Because if he's wrong, then he's absolutely picked the worst time to draw a line in the sand when normally he testifies for the state. Because I would put the notoriety of this particular trial right up there with Casey Anthony. And his professional reputation will be absolutely shot if he's found wrong. Which has led a lot of people to believe he's actually right. Which would then mean that the defense is right. Now, of course, if the defense is correct and Cy is right, then that would mean that the FBI is wrong. Now, some individuals have speculated that an FBI agent didn't actually prepare this cast report. Those individuals are making the statement that Detective Payne did it. And a lot of this seems to stem from a Reddit post that I'll show you right here, and a link will be down in the description below. But if an FBI agent didn't prepare this cast report and Detective Payne prepared it, does that decrease the validity of what they're trying to say within that report? Now, it's not like the FBI has never been wrong before, with the exception of identifying this white Hyundai Elantra. But both the state and the defense can't be right unless the investigators botched this whole thing from the get-go. And I think this is the biggest concern we all have. Now, reports did surface very early on that law enforcement was clearing people way too fast in this investigation. And when asked about it, what did law enforcement say?
I mean, to be honest, you're going to have to trust us on that at this point because we're not going to release why we think that.
And when you read the timeline of events versus what Dylan says, that means that while everybody was either asleep in their beds or in their rooms, somebody was playing with Murphy. And at that exact same time, Bryan was still driving his car.
I mean, to be honest, you're going to have to trust us on that at this point because we're not going to release why we think that.
And as far as we know, the only possible DNA found of Bryan's was that on the knife sheath. Now, there has not been any mention of anything found in his apartment or in his home or in his car. And there's nothing else of Bryan's found within the home. And y'all can't expect me to sit here and say that that is 100% acceptable. That crime was very brutal. So there should be a whole lot more in the way of DNA evidence than what was actually found. And the only possible way that the defense can be right within this alibi statement, while the state is right with what they're saying is found on video surveillance, is that this whole investigation is botched and there's actually two suspects. That is the only possible explanation for Bryan to be southwest of his home while in Moscow at the same time. And before anyone says that's ridiculous, has any of that unidentified male DNA been identified yet? There is a common misconception on this platform that Bryan has to prove he's innocent. The reality is Ann just has to provide doubt. Now, to make the case that this story as we know it right now doesn't have any holes in it is factually incorrect. And after you hit that like button and leave a comment down below, go to any other creator on this platform who is making the case that Bryan Kohberger is innocent or has doubt at this point. And of all those creators, what other case are they making that same argument on? It's not as if this thing is open and shut. Now, whether that's because everything is just sealed or there's actual holes in this investigation, we'll just have to wait and see if this thing goes to trial. Because ultimately a jury will determine if he's guilty or innocent if this thing goes to trial. As of right now, I see a whole lot of holes and I can't see it any other way. Now, if you see any of these things differently, you can let me know down in the comments below. Y'all be safe now.